Hi, and welcome to the Planet Driven Brands podcast. In this show, we will be discussing with our guests how brands they represent can help in the drive to build a better, more sustainable and safer planet. We will highlight brands as drivers for change and the role they play as influencers. How will brands positively impact the planet and its environment? This is what we're going to find out. Do brands actually have any responsibility to change? The Planet Driven Brands podcast, episode 22. Today's guest is David Benzaquen. We're going to be talking about plant-based food businesses and sustainability within food waste. Hi David, really nice to meet you. I wonder if you could introduce yourself.
Sure, my name is David Benzaquen. I'm the founder and CEO of MissionPlant based in the United States. We are a holding company that makes investments and offers strategic consulting services to plant-based consumer products companies.
I noticed that you have been an experienced leader within this space for well over a decade, it would appear. And I would like to know how you first got involved and why you got involved and why you're still here.
So I've been plant-based for over 20 years, and my motivation was animal protection. And so when I was very young, I was passionate about many different social change issues, but I was really drawn to protecting animals because of the sheer numbers of animals that we use for our lives, of the fact that they don't have the opportunity to speak up for themselves, and the fact that there is so much intersectionality between the impacts of our using animals on their welfare, but also on our health and on the environment simultaneously. In the beginning of my career, I worked in the nonprofit world, promoting plant-based eating and reforms in our food system and how we raised animals for food. And I did that for a number of years with some large national organizations in the United States, both in fundraising and in advocacy. But in 2010, I left that work to start an agency called Plant-Based Solutions. My motivation for doing that was I came to believe that I could have a greater impact on getting people to change their behavior and reduce the number of animals they were eating and using by making delicious products more accessible, affordable, convenient, and attractive. In 2017, I also founded a plant-based seafood company called Ocean Hugger Foods, which became known for our flagship product, Ahimi, which is a tomato-based alternative to raw tuna. Built that company over several years and just sold it. And I'm now with MissionPlant, and I'm doing investments and consulting once again.
Wow. You've seen the seismic change. Can you tell me how it's really accelerated over the last 4 or 5 years?
Sure. I think that the biggest shift, maybe a bit more than 4 or 5 years ago, because now it's building on product success. But I think the first tipping point was the reframing of the issue as one of all or nothing, go vegan or nothing, and a real focus on an ideology and an identity to, meatless Mondays, and basically a recognition that every single time we sit down to eat or every single time we go to the supermarket, we can make a choice with our dollar and our fork to do something that's good for the world, good for our health, good for the planet, good for animals. And if we just do that once a week, that's still better than not doing it at all. I think the reframing of the issue to the impact we can have with small changes really enabled the evolution of the flexitarian. Yeah. And that's really what's driven the market in terms of demand, and what's made it possible for all these products to succeed at the levels they have now.
Let's jump to MissionPlant, if you don't mind, because I'm really interested. Let's say I've got an idea for a food-based product. What do I do next?
Yeah, so I think that there are 3 different elements to building the foundation for the business. The first is understanding the brand positioning and who the brand is and what it does that consumers actually care about, that is unique, will be in demand, and that it can do better than anybody else. Because really, consumers are not looking for something other than what they have right now. They're spending their dollars and they're eating and they're alive and they're just fine. And so you have to convince them that your thing is worth them stopping to buy something else or buying less of that to buy something of yours. Getting that mind share means being better. The second is the product itself, understanding how to not just make a product once in your kitchen, but how to develop it at scale. So working with people to help find a manufacturing facility or a supply chain of ingredients at wholesale prices and not retail prices, and how to make those as cost efficient, consistent, safely, and effectively as possible. And then the last piece is the financing. And I think all those pieces have to be in place to make the business work. The latter is kind of dependent on the first two. So what I tell people is that really you parallel path. First, you research the market and your competitive set and what's out there, and talk to consumers to understand where you fit in, and you build your brand and your story and your product planning around that. Yeah. Then you work with all the efforts it takes to scale, to know that you can make that at scale in an affordable way, and then a way that makes sense for the market. And then you think about how to fund that.
I just want to touch on the US consumer. I just wonder if you could tell me, how's it going in terms of the percentage of take up, and how many flexitarians are there in the United States?
It's a great question. So one of the companies that I own and that I founded as part of MissionPlant, because one of my things, in addition to consulting and investing, I also create service businesses that other people run. And so one of them is a company called Moonshot Collaborative. And it's the world's first consumer research firm devoted to studying the behaviors and beliefs of plant-based eaters. And I don't mean vegetarians, I mean anybody who eats plant-based products. And so we have thousands of American consumers who buy those products, with whom we can, on behalf of brands, research, would you eat this product? How much would you spend on it? Do you prefer this packaging or that packaging? What do you think of the taste? And we can do all kinds of research with them. You know, what we're finding is that adoption is really, really great. Obviously, adoption of burgers and milk far exceed the other categories. And that has a lot to do with satisfaction. You know, I'd say launching a burger or a milk right now would be a very hard thing to convince me to do. But, you know, if you ask me, should you launch a yogurt or should you launch a cheese? Well, if you're positioned right and if you've got a true differentiator, you might want to. 20-something% of American households tried plant-based yogurts last year, but 1% of yogurts sold in this country are plant-based. Why? People aren't satisfied, right? That means there's not repeat purchase. You look at the category, or 3 of the top 5 companies in sales are less than 3 years old. That means that the incumbents, with all of their money, are not satisfying consumers. And so there's a lot of room for new leaders. Even in milk, you see that, but it's a harder path to run because you have a lot of competition. But even there, we see Oatly in the United States was able to cut through a very crowded field straight to the top of a very, very intense market. So there's still a lot of opportunity, and consumers are very excited to try new things, very adventurous and very open-minded.
That's the point, isn't it? And you've got to make it taste great. You can't just plonk it there because if it doesn't taste good, you've killed that category immediately.
Yeah, one of my clients is a company called Bolthouse Farms, which is a $1 billion produce and beverage company here in the United States that's known for being one of the largest carrot companies and juice companies. They were, until recently, owned by Campbell's. They're now under the leadership of an incredible entrepreneur named Jeff Dunn, who's really doing an extraordinary job with it. But before that, under Campbell's, they launched a non-dairy milk, and they figured that because they had experience in refrigerated, because all their other products were refrigerated, and because they had a large war chest and the ability to get on shelves, that they'd be successful. And so they just threw out some random plant-based milk onto the market, and it was a catastrophe because they didn't spend any time worrying about the taste or worrying about getting the differentiation right. They just thought, there's a large enough market, we'll just capitalize on getting some market share. But they didn't, because nobody was interested in something just because it was there. We're past that point. We're not a small group of vegans who are willing to eat wheat, germ, and nutritional yeast exclusively to survive, and who are willing to, be satisfied with tofu sandwiches or grilled vegetable platters in a restaurant or a watery down pasta primavera. No.
And I'm just really interested in that link between sustainability, the food markets that you work in, and food waste, because we all know food waste is a crucial part of what we're about.
Yeah. So, food waste is a huge problem. 40% of all food that gets to the consumer is thrown out. There's a huge amount that's thrown out even before it gets to the consumer. If we want to reduce food waste, feed hungry people, reduce the amount of land and water we're wasting to grow food, then capturing some of that and converting it into viable food is one of the most important things. And it's a lot easier to do that at the industrial level than it is at the consumer level, because to drive consumer behavior change, to get everybody to start composting, collecting that effectively, having the place, the logistics to get it around to the fields and dump it out is really complex. But at the industrial level, you've got a factory that has a massive amount of product that is not going into its final product. And that can be repurposed quite easily. It's easy to capture. Yeah, so there are a lot of factories that are realizing now that they've got really nutritious byproducts that are waste streams of their primary manufacturing that can be really great food. So a great example is the company Hodo Soy Beanery, which is a fantastic tofu company here in the United States that has teamed up with a startup called Renewal Mill. And Renewal Mill is taking the byproduct of the tofu production called okara, which is a very protein-rich, basically you use a lot of water in making tofu. Mm-hmm. And so what's left is a lot of this watery substance that's filled with a lot of the runoff protein that didn't end up in the final product. And so this company Renewal Mill is taking that. It would be thrown out. They're instead taking it, drying it, and milling it into an incredible gluten-free flour. And it's got so much nutrition, and it serves a real purpose because it's gluten-free. It's super high in protein and fiber. It's a great product. I think that there is so much nutrition we can capture using these kinds of ingenious approaches to food. And it's a great way to reduce waste, but also to increase the value of everything we're making.
That is very much at the production level. Back to your Moonshot and your consumers, are they ready to engage?
Certainly a lot less of the food safety concerns, but it's also about how we present product, right? I think that presenting it as waste can only go so far, and it's only going to attract, it's like presenting something as vegan, it's only going to attract those who are motivated by that extreme ideology. But for most people, it comes down to the food. I'll give you an example. There's a company here called Spero Foods, which makes cheese out of sunflower meal. That's a byproduct of sunflower seed oil production. It's extremely rich in protein and healthy fats, and so it makes a great substrate to make a really delicious cheese, just like a cashew cheese. But it's diverted food waste. But she's not going to the world and saying, hey, I'm taking garbage food and making it into something. She's saying, I'm taking incredible sunflower seeds, which are extremely nutritious, and it's true, and making them cheeses. And she's right. So it's about presentation. If you say this is delicious food, there's no reason to see it as anything else other than that. That's my specialty, is helping people to enter and tackle this market in a smart way.
Thank you so much, David.
Great. That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
But thank you so much again for your time. It's been brilliant. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Yeah, absolutely. Me as well. Have a great rest of your evening.
You too. All the best. Cheers.
Bye.
Fascinating insights to the world and the history of plant-based. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. The Planet Driven Brands podcast is the brainchild and copyright of Nick Jones and is broadcast in partnership with planetsagency.com. Planets Agency is a partnership of consultants and communications experts who build planet-driven brands. During the series of shows, we'll be hearing from more experts, and we would love for you to be involved. Please do comment or come back to us with questions. We'll be happy to engage. If you wish to be notified when our episodes are broadcast, please subscribe on the website. If you'd like to be part of the show, we'd love to hear from you. We look forward to many more entertaining episodes. Thanks again for listening.